What's up? Start this video off with a little humor. So I have an assistant that comes over here and decides it's time to organize my wrenches. Lays them all out and then leaves them there. I had to start off with a little bit of humor. Okay, so moving on. We are playing around with these transmissions on that Honda HRV 2016 model. I gotta admit, I like the front end on the new ones. You can see the eyes, like the mouth, you know, the nose. It looks like a face. I like it. Anyways, we are going to talk about a few of the things that you need to think about and know when taking one of these out. My son has confiscated my tripod, so I haven't been able to record as much. Removing this, I've ordered another one on Amazon. I'll record a little more putting it back together. The disassembly is not as important as putting it back together. Anybody can take some apart. It's knowing how to put it back together where we define your true worth. Okay, and so as you can see, I got the engine braced up here with this log of wood. I have a rag underneath, protect paint and stuff like that. This is like a piece of rubber that used to be part of a tire, as you can see. And I hammered that into the bottom of this wood. I cut an old tire, cut a piece of an old tire out. From there to there, put it on the bottom of that wood. Same thing over here. Cut a piece of tire out. Took all the sharpness and everything out of it from where I cut it. And put it on this, what is this, a 4x4? Yeah. And then I came and I got some chains and some bolts, and I chained up to the motor mount here. Now, if you can see, this is loose, but I put it there just for safety, just for prevention. What's really holding the weight here is this chain. This one with the tension on it, right? So I have that onto the metal pipe on the back of the water pump. It's strong enough to hold the weight of this little 1.8 engine. And I have the transmission out already, as you can see. You don't have to remove the starter. The starter can stay there. You don't have to remove the throttle body. All that can stay there. You do have to remove the harness, the electrical harness that runs to the transmission. All that gets removed. Your battery tray gets removed. Your motor mount on this side gets removed. It's a lot that gets removed. You remove a lot of these. Let me go underneath and show you better. Go underneath. You remove all the hoses and it's gonna leak coolant everywhere. To remove that harness, you gotta unclip it from here to give you slack, obviously, and then you have access to all this empty space here. You remove the motor mount on the bottom that comes in here and the bracket that attaches to it. When you're removing the battery tray, it has those two bolts underneath that you loosen and back up a little, but you leave them on because it'll slide right into there like that. So there's no need to remove them completely. If I had to remove this lower subframe, I easily could, because the engine is being held up with my block of wood. And I don't think I have to. I think I'll have enough room. But if I need to, if this hump here gets in my way, I'll end up lowering this out, down and out of the way. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so the engine stays in place. All that comes apart. And here you have access to getting the transmission out. Because this older transmission is not going to be reused and it's not rebuildable, I wasn't nice to it. I just let it drop on the floor. The new one, we're not going to do that way. All right, so what I wanted to point out here was the rear main seal. And as you can see, this rear main seal is not leaking. It's this brown seal. That's the back of the crank, and that's what prevents. That's your high pressure seal. You have a seal on the back of the crank and on the front of the crank, which is the crank pulley. Crank pulley there. I have a pry bar, a socket, and a tube being wedged against the floor with my pry bar to kind of lock the engine in place. These 3 bolts hold your half shaft to your CV axle. You have a bolt on the back of here, one here, one here, here, and another one somewhere here. Yeah, and then you have your, obviously, your 2 top bolts there and there. So those are all pretty much holding the transmission, the bell housing. And then you have your access door to get your torque converter bolts out from this way in, a little bunch of 10mm bolts. But yeah, you don't want to drop this transmission and not replace this seal, because it's a $20-$30 seal. And is it leaking now? No. You could argue with me, Danny, but that seal looks great. It's not even leaking. And you're right. I'm not going to argue with you. It's not leaking. It looks great. But we're here now, right? And this seal has 73,000 miles on it practically. And at some point, it's going to start to leak again. Do you want to pay the labor later down the road to remove this, to do it again later, when we could easily put a fresh one on there now and know that it was done and have that peace of mind? Exactly my point, guys. So we'll be replacing that seal, even though there's nothing wrong with that one, just as preventative measures. That's why it's called preventative maintenance, for a reason, to prevent it from happening later, not to wait for it to happen. Preventative maintenance. So we're gonna get out of here because coolant will drip on your face and all kind of stuff. One thing I noticed while I was laying under here looking up is, look at the bottom of that positive terminal to the battery. The corrosion already building up there. We'll end up having to clean that for them. But oh, you see this mark right here before I get out of here? See that mark? That's to, and then there's a little mark right there. This thing don't want to focus. Little mark here, and it lines straight up with that mark. So when we go to bolt this flex plate, now we go to bolt this flex plate back in, we want to make sure it's in the exact same position. Why? I don't know. That's the way I was trained to do it, guys. And I'm just a good little learner that always did it that way afterwards. And so you got your shield, your washer, whatever you want to call it, and that's marked also. and that'll go back in the same exact position and pattern that it was in. All these bolts will get Loctite, and they recommend getting all new bolts for this. I always look at the threads. They say they're stretch to yield threads, but these threads seem okay. So this is the transmission, and they say that you know, these can be rebuilt or whatever, but these transmissions ain't that expensive. They're not like $1,500 for a transmission, so it's not worth paying to get it rebuilt to try to sell it to somebody else. This is just scrap junk in the junk pile. But they are the same transmission, as you can see. This is the torque converter. We will not be using that torque converter. We will be using the one that the new transmission comes with. We will be using that flex plate on that torque converter. Nothing on this transmission will be using other than the hoses that they cut off of the cooler. And as you can see, again, part 1 video, I mentioned how the cooler was damaged. And this cooler is not damaged, and neither is the hoses. But when this transmission, when you shake it around, you can hear literally all the broken pieces inside of it. And I'm not taking any chances of that cooler being contaminated with any of that and having the liability of that. So they're buying a new cooler. This transmission, other than that, looks pretty good, looks pretty clean. There's really nothing else really to talk about here on this transmission. So we'll keep the video short. There's the two transmissions side by side. There's your markings. Engine hoist up is very important. Now y'all can make fun and crack jokes about my little redneck log here. I've had the fancy little metal tools with all the holes and the adjusters. I've paid for all that from Matco Tools, and I've owned it. And what happens is you get buddies that are like, oh, let me borrow that. We're going to knock out this job over the weekend. And the next thing you know, you never get your tool back. And that's like a $300-400 tool that Matco sells you. So you get to the point where you're just burnt out at having to go buy another one, and that's happened to me twice already. So you get creative and you learn to make your own. You understand what the purpose of the tool is. You get cheap. And if I ever did let somebody borrow this one and they didn't return it, it didn't cost me much. But because people have shown me how shitty they are and by not returning the past ones, I have pretty much become an asshole that doesn't let anybody borrow shit anymore. I really don't. So that one will permanently stay. One day we'll make it look all nice and pretty, and we'll paint it and put stickers maybe even on it, whatever. One day when we're bored with a lot of time on our hands. Right now it's just getting the job done. So yeah, you want to be able to brace this engine from the top, because you're removing the motor mount from there. And that kind of holds it in place, and you're not playing around with jacks holding the bottom of the engine that could slip off and all that while you're under there in your way and everything else. So I really don't want to make these videos too long. So any questions, drop them in the comments. This video is not intended to be absolutely clear to y'all. This video is not intended. I'm gonna turn this around, turn this light off. This video is not intended to give you a very detailed step-by-step guide on how to do this job. This video is intended for people that are qualified to do this job, have maybe never done one on a Honda HRV, to kind of get a better idea of how to drop this. This is actually my first Honda HRV automatic transmission on a 2016. It's not that common to do these transmissions, yet these vehicles are fairly new. We're just now starting to find out how crappy these transmissions really are. I've known it all along because I've been in the industry long enough to know Honda's just not known for reliable automatic transmissions. But the proof is in the pudding, and we're getting to the pudding, y'all. We're getting to the proof where they're at that age. 2016s are now starting to show their true colors, hitting that 70,000 mile mark and above of what you see from that turd back there. You know, you could say there's driver error, mine still drives great, whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, it's not just this guy. We're not just going to pick on him. I see this happen a lot with these Hondas. So could there have been some driver error involved? Yeah, possibly. But does that mean that that's exactly what caused it? No. I just think they're bad transmissions. So whether he decides to put this in here and keep it forever, or put this in here and turn around and sell it, that's entirely on him. I'm not one to make that call. I'm one to get them back on the road. And so if you are a novice that doesn't know how to do this, unless you have a direct step-by-step, every little intricate detail of this job video for you, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this job. That's just the way I feel about it. Sorry to be a dick about it, but you shouldn't. Like, I didn't go to school and sit in class 5 days a week, 7 hours a day to get some little certificate that says I'm qualified to work on cars, you know, for nothing. I went because it's necessary. Cars are complex. And that's why I have this student loan, and that's why I have this certifications. You get where I'm coming from, guys? So there's certain jobs that I would say technician C can handle, which to me is your Uncle Joe with a toolbox that's handy and can do a brake job or whatever, change his own spark plugs, do his own oil change. Then you have technician B jobs, which is a guy that is a little more advanced, but he's not quite a master technician yet. And then you have your technician A jobs, which he's a master technician. He is master certified. He's been doing this as a career, as a way to provide an income for his family for decades, for years. So that's technician A. This is what I would call either a very advanced technician B job, or more leaning towards a technician A type of job. This is not something you want to try to tackle yourself in the driveway with your buddies because y'all think y'all have put an intake on your car and slapped some headers on there and you think you're good to go. I would personally advise against that. These newer cars are a little different than the older Hondas. There's a little more involved to it. This video may make it appear to be easier than what it is. All YouTube videos usually do that. That's why I kind of stay away from the step-by-step exact how to do this video on these big jobs. You'll see videos on my channel step-by-step how to do it on simple stuff like how to replace an alternator, how to put brake pads on, how to replace this radiator. You won't see me do one on how to drop a transmission, how to replace an engine. You just won't, because those are technician A or very, very highly skilled technician B, borderline technician A guys jobs, and they don't need step-by-step videos like that. They need a video like this without all this rambling I'm doing here towards the end that they've probably skipped and fast forwarded. They need videos like me. I've never done a Honda HRV. A video like this, I would have went online and got value from, okay, I see, yeah, what engine they're putting in that thing? They're putting a 1.8 in there, yeah, like in the Civics. Okay, great, same engine. Oh, I'm familiar with that automatic transmission over there. Yeah, I can feel comfortable on that. I know what to charge for that. I know what it's going to entail to do that job. You know, they'll watch a video for those reasons. The other reason I make the video, I'll end the video and saying is because if this customer wanted to come back and say, well, I paid him to replace my transmission, but I don't know if he replaced it or not. I mean, he says he did, blah, 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 blah. You know, there you go. There's the proof. There's the old one out. Big hole in here, right? It's clear, video don't lie. The transmission's out. There's the new one about to go in. I've already shown documentation of the VIN number of the car, the VIN number of the transmission that came out in part one and video part one, the VIN number of the transmission going in. All this documentation, all this video stuff, the customer can't come back and say, well, he said he did, but I don't know. You know, it's like proof is in the video. Your old transmission came out, new one's going in. On this new video, on the next video, part 3, where the transmission is going in, I get a little more involved because that's really what they're paying me for. That's really what they should care more about. They shouldn't care that much about the old piece of shit that came out, the whole details of the process of that. They should care more about the details and the process of the new one that they spent money in, the new one with all that orange paint going in. That's what they should be more interested in seeing in with greater detail, right? So I do that for them. I give them a little more detail on the new one going in. This one, we just need to get it out. So it's out, and the video proves that it's out. Anyways, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 3. Like I said, it'll be a little more mechanical and less blah, blah, blah going on. But thanks for watching the video. Until part 3, y'all. Peace.